Finally, I am now live on YouTube. I was trying to do everything possible to load YouTube. I was about to give up and go lie down and start sleeping. So, hello everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Tochi, aka Papa Dr. Tochi, Mom of the men's and the women's. And I am glad and grateful that you've taken time this Sunday to come to class. I know that you could be doing something else, but you chose to come to class. Hello, Love 3. And today we're going to be talking about intergenerational curses. So be sure to have your notebook and your pen, your drink and your snack. I might be turning around to make myself a cup of tea. Let me just see how I feel. My website is drtochi.com, tochi.us, so you can access it both ways. Hi, Grace. And on my website, you can book me for divinations, spiritual counseling. I've got different kinds of divinations going on there. I got courses, I got books, I got trainings, I got events, I got spiritual practice coaching. If you'd like me to coach you for your spiritual practice so that you will know what you're doing and achieve clarity, you can book me there on my website, tochi.us or drtochi.com. Hi, Onyechukwu. And if I'm looking a little bit tired, I am tired. Okay. Oh, and Love 3 goes ahead and sends me a donut. Sugar is not the best thing for a tired person. Oh my god, that is too cute. Hi, Frozen. Thank you very much. Hello, Mama Bena. Okay. We're going to be discussing intergenerational curses. If I'm looking a bit tired and yawning, yes, we're going through a spiritual fast and cleanse, and we're going to be done in about 3 days. So it's a little bit tasking, but it's a good thing to do. Get the spiritual fast on. I have wonderful people who signed up for it. We're having a good time there. We're, learning a lot of things. And even though I'm facilitating it, I'm also learning a lot of things. Okay. I'm going to try my best to get through today's material. If I can't, I'll just do a part 2 because I'm just a little bit tired. Okay. We will have our ancestor healing ritual on the equinox, which is tomorrow. Okay. I'm going to post the Google Meet link for that because because it's a ritual, it won't be recorded. So if you want to participate, you have to do so live. Okay. So the ancestor healing ritual will be tomorrow on the equinox. I believe that tomorrow is the equinox. So whenever the equinox is, that's what we're going to do it. So it's Monday, I believe. And I will post the Google Meet link on the community page on YouTube and also on Patreon. So if you are a member, be sure to attend. It's usually interesting and helpful, beneficial. And in line with what we're going to talk about today, you might want to participate in the ancestor healing ritual. I would appreciate it if you gave the class a thumbs up. Give the live stream a thumbs up. That lets the algorithm know to notify people. Let them know that class is in session. Because folks do say that they're not getting notified. So if you do your classmates a favor and give them a thumbs up. Okay, so after giving me a donut, you're now giving me coffee. I see what you're doing over there on TikTok. Hello, Auntie Mizuba. Hello, Ann Kaiga. Okay, so also remember to share the live. Lets other people know that we're here. Okay. So, have you ever asked yourself, why does suffering repeat in your lineage? Okay. So, you might find out that majority of the people in your lineage are poor or suffering from poverty. Maybe not everybody, but majority are going through poverty, or majority are going through sickness, especially if it's similar or the same kind of sickness. Betrayal, relationship issues, legal issues, spiritual issues, and it's running rampant through your lineage. So your mom, your dad, your siblings, your children, grandchildren, nephews, nieces, uncles, aunties, grandparents, great grandparents, extended family. It looks like y'all are being bit by the same bug. There's a possibility that there's some kind of intergenerational curse going on there, and I'm aware that that term intergenerational curse has been bandied around loosely. I've had a situation where somebody didn't have a job. She was finding it hard to get a job. And she said, "Oh, it's an intergenerational curse." I know it's an intergenerational curse. And I said to her, "Is your mother unemployed?" And she goes, "No." "Is your father unemployed?" "No." "Who else in your family is unemployed?" She says, "Just me." "I know it's an intergenerational curse." And I said, "Lady, go and understand the meaning of intergenerational curse. You are having your problems. It has nothing to do with multiple generations, okay? But when this thing is happening within your lineages, within your families, addictions and poverty and conflict and violence and things of that nature, it means you need to look a little bit closer. You need to examine this a little bit closer to gain a better understanding of what's going on. Yes, I would appreciate the thumbs up. Thank you very much for sharing the live, Love3. And thank you very much for the thumbs up. Hello, LD Care. How are you? All right, so remember the thumbs up helps a lot. Okay, so we would generally define an intergenerational curse as a repeating or cyclical pattern of misfortune, trauma, or blockages passed down through a family line. For instance, if you have the men in the family always poor, financial failure. So you look at the great grandfather, financially poor, the grandfather, financially poor, the father, financially poor, the son, financially poor. That is an intergenerational curse. Sometimes it might be the second son. The great grandfather was the second son, and he's always poor. And then the second son of the second son is also poor. Then the second son of the second son of the second son is poor. That's an intergenerational curse. Okay. Now, for the purposes of this class, I've broken it down into 3 sections or 3 dimensions. Okay, we have the spiritual, we have the energetic, and then we have the biological. So we have spiritual causes, we have spiritual causes and spiritual patterns, we have energetic causes and patterns, and then we have biological causes and patterns. Okay, so when we talk about spiritual type of problems that you might find in a lineage, you might find ancestral covenants, neglected spirits, guides, spoken curses, the not so good kind of witchcraft or voodoo, juju sort of thing going on. When we talk about the energetic pattern, we're talking about fear and shame and anxiety and violence or addiction being repeated through the family. When you have parents addicted, children addicted, great grandchildren addicted, that's an intergenerational curse, okay? And then sometimes we have biological patterns, okay? When we start talking about epigenetics, and we're finding trauma encoded in the person's DNA. So we're not saying that the trauma is changing the DNA, but it affects how the DNA expresses itself. So in the expression of the DNA. And we'll get into that a little bit more, okay? Now there are different kinds of intergenerational curses, and take a moment to write this down so that you can be very knowledgeable about this. Okay. Because, like I said earlier, there are folks that you will see them every little problem they have. This is an intergenerational curse. They stub their toe. Oh, I know that's an intergenerational curse. They don't have a job. Oh, I'm sure that's an intergenerational curse. Well, here's a list of the types of generational curses. So be sure to write it down. Okay. Now we have in the first category spoken word curses. Okay. And these are destructive words or destructive invocations or destructive prayers, destructive incantations that stick across generations. Okay. So you might have someone who lays a curse on a people, on a family, and everybody down the line. So not just the original person who was cursed, but everybody who belongs to that family is affected by it, or everybody who belongs to that community is affected by it. Let me give an example. One of my forebears was a slave trader. And I'm made to understand when he went to, and I'm talking about the 1800s, okay, in Africa. So he went to an area and told the king of that place to give him a set number of slaves and be spared. He wanted that the king of that place to be a supplier of slaves to him. And the king of that place said, "No, I'm not participating in this, and we're not get." And this forefather said, "I want you to select people from your village, from your kingdom, and supply them to me as slaves." And this king said, "I will never do such thing. I am not going to give you anybody from my village to sell. We're not available. We're not participating. And if you try to force us, we will fight you." So this my forebear fought and defeated this king, captured the king. And they brought the king of this place on his knees. So he was beaten, he was humiliated, he was stripped naked, and he was brought to his knees in front of the slave traders, including my forebears. And not only was the king captured, he was captured with a whole bunch of people from his village, so probably about 200 people. And my forebear said to this king, "For disobeying us, we will exterminate you, we will exit you." And then proceeded to lay a curse on my forebear and lay a curse on the land that my forebear was taking over. Because when my forebear took this king and his people, they took over the land. They just overran the land and said, we're going to take over this land, and this land is going to be ours. You disobeyed. I am taking everything away from you. And so this king laid a curse on this forebear, this forefather that I had. Cursed him, cursed his group, cursed his family, and cursed the land. And in the curse, he said, this land will be a source of embarrassment, hardship, humiliation for you and your followers and your descendants. When every other person is moving forward and progressing in life, that peace and progress will be denied you, both in the land of the living and in the land of the dead. So my forebear was like, and proceeded to take out this guy and some of his key people. But guess what happened? The initial victory was short-lived. If you go to that area where this happened, it's an economically depressed area. There's nothing good coming out of that area. Majority of the families in that area are in dire poverty. And my forebear's descendants didn't do so well. Let me just leave it like that. They had intrigues among themselves. They were taking out each other within the family and the extended family. So that's an example of a spoken word curse. Sometimes widows and orphans, fatherless children and motherless children will issue spoken word curses against their oppressors. And if they are justified, those curses come to pass. And when that person is placing a curse, they're not just cursing the person who's offending them or oppressing them. They will go ahead and curse every descendant and every relative of the oppressor. And as soon as it starts operating, it becomes an intergenerational curse. Okay. Now, some intergenerational curses come as a result of bloodline agreements. Okay. So you might have someone who makes a covenant with a spirit guide or a deity for some benefit, for some favor, and the person with their own lips say, me and my descendants will be beholden to you forever. They might say things to the nature, anytime we don't give you such and such, I am giving you permission to take it out on us and take it out on our lineage. I'm promising you. I'm coming into agreement with you. If you do such and such for me, we will always do such and such for you. And if at any time we are in default, you can do to us, with us, whatever you will. And so as time goes on, the descendants of this original person who made that covenant are not aware of this covenant. They're not aware of this agreement. Maybe they've all become Christians or Muslims, or they joined another religion, or they've moved away from that area. And their parents did not tell them Their grandparents did not tell them about this covenant or agreement with the spirit guide or deity. And so maybe they moved to different cities, different regions, different countries, and they are experiencing hardship. And it doesn't matter what they do, they keep on experiencing hardship. And that hardship is as a result of that covenant. An example is I have a forebear who wanted to be the most powerful man around. And he would offer whomever and whatever to his deities to ensure that he was the most spiritually powerful person. Well, he passed and he didn't show anybody how to switch this off. He didn't switch it off. He didn't break the covenant. He didn't break the agreement. So the deity just went ahead and started feeding off of the descendants because the deity was used to a heavy sort of sacrifice. Okay. I'm saying this in a coded way because of the platforms that we're on, so you should be able to understand what I'm saying in a coded way. And of course, we're in the 20th century, 21st century. Nobody's making those kind of offerings again. So, but the deity is covenanted to the lineage and basically saying, I haven't been fed. And if nobody's feeding me, I will go ahead and feed myself from the descendants. Okay. Then there are some that come from trauma and emotional patterns where if there's repetitive abuse and violence and fear and shame played out in the family, and each generation is learning how to do this to the succeeding generation, it becomes a curse because you start having situations where parents are saying to their children or grandparents are saying to their children, this is what we do. And even though what they're doing is causing pain and suffering, they keep on saying, this is what we do. This is our family tradition. This is what, we do. And related to that is behavioral patterns of poverty and addiction and betrayal. You will find that in some families, incest is intergenerational. Grape is intergenerational. DV is intergenerational in some families. So the children learn to accept it. And that's when you hear strange things like women saying, oh, if a man doesn't beat me, then he doesn't love me. That's a sign of an intergenerational curse. And there's some women like that. They will tell you if their man doesn't beat them, doesn't DV them, they don't feel loved. That's an intergenerational curse, okay? Then there's some curses that come from spiritual neglect. And this is also related to covenants. When a family's abundance and prosperity and peace and fertility is linked to a deity or a spirit guide or to ancestors, and the original people who made that covenant said, for giving us these good things, we will always give you, whatever. And they don't tell their descendants that, hey, the reason why we're wealthy in our family, the reason why we have a lot of kids in our family. I mean, there are some families back in the day, they were having all girls. They didn't have any males to succeed and take over inheritances. There were some families that were not having children at all. The infant mortality rates were high. And so the women would have children, and the children would barely see their first birthday. There were some families where they weren't even getting pregnant at all, and the family was at the risk of being wiped out. This thing is tight on my head, man. I'm trying to be fashionable, but it's tight. Oh, goodness. I can feel my brain being squeezed. Okay, so you have some people who will go and invite a spirit guide into their family, into their clan, into their kindred. And they say, if you stay here with us and bless us with children so that our name does not die out, we will keep on making offerings to you. We will feed you. We will venerate you. We'll give you a home here. And, the people who are aware at the time, they will do this. They'll keep on doing this. They have an agreed upon interval. Maybe they do it every year. They have a yearly ceremony or festival. But as time goes on, maybe their children become Christians or become Muslims or join another religion or move away. And they are not told what the family tradition is. That the reason why they are heavily populated in that family, that they have a lot of people in that family, is because of the help, the aid of the spirit guide. So they go about and they transfer their allegiance to their church, or they transfer their allegiance to a Jesus egregore or whatever egregore is out there. And that spirit guide that's been helping them turns its back on that family because it's not being fed. It's not harming the family, just turns its back on the family and says, okay, you're not feeding me, so I can't work with you. Because remember, spirit guides are transactional. So if you're not feeding me, you're not giving me what I need, what's my motivation to keep blessing you and helping you? So they turn their back on the family, and then the family starts having problems. And as generation after generation will be having problems because that agreement was made with that lineage or that clan or that kindred or that village or that community. So everybody that is covered by that is affected. Thank you, Samson. All right. So again, when we look at the causes of intergenerational curses, we can look at broken oaths. And oaths are broken, vows are broken, betrayals. Okay. Sometimes bloodshed will bring an intergenerational curse, especially if it's a relative taking out a fellow relative or someone in the same community or the same clan taking out someone from the same clan or community. They could get hit with an intergenerational curse until that curse is expiated. Okay. So, other things that propagate or help intergenerational curses are family silence. People know that there's something wrong going on in the family, but they don't want to talk about it and they don't want to address it. And sometimes they will outright deny it. And we find this in cases of rape and incest and DV. You will see children coming up to their mothers and saying, hey, look at what daddy did. And the woman tells the child to shut up or tells the child you're lying. Or some women will turn around and accuse their child of trying to snatch their husband from them. And trust me, there is no explanation for that. There's no explanation for a woman who turns to her child and accuses her child of envy and jealousy and trying to snatch her husband. But there are some women out there doing that. And there's some men out there doing that, accusing their children of trying to snatch their spouse away from them. And they're forgetting that this same spouse is the parent of the child. So they're not even acknowledging that. All they're thinking about is, you're not going to take my man from me. You're not going to take my woman from me. So they suppress the trauma. Sometimes they will turn around and attack the child for speaking the truth. And this is very common. It's very common in every country. Because sometimes people say, oh, maybe it doesn't happen in America. Yes, it does. Oh, the people in Canada or UK must be so civilized. It doesn't happen there. Yes, it does. It happens everywhere. People who are so desperate to be married and desperate to keep the marriage that they will suppress the trauma, even if they saw it with their own two eyes. There was a video on Instagram, I think I mentioned it a couple of months ago, of a community that I think they kind of drug out this man, and I think they were beating him or something, or called the popo on him. I'm trying to remember what it was. But anyway, they had laid hands on the man because the man was laying his hands on his own daughter. And they brought out the wife from the house. And they asked her, did you know that your husband was doing this? And she goes, yes, I know. I'm aware. I knew about it. And people were horrified. Folks were like, say what? Say who? What the helly? What the hell? You knew about this. You did not protect your children. And she goes, no, I love my husband. The Bible says we should cover our husbands. The Bible says we need to cover our husband's shame. So the people in the crowd were like, wait a minute. So you're aware that your husband was doing this to his own daughter, your child, and this is what you have to say. And she says, yes, with my full chest. I love my husband. I will not do anything to wreck my marriage. I will not do anything to humiliate or bring disrepute to my husband. And people were like, even at the expense of your own child. And she said, yes, it is better that he does it within the family than for him to go outside and cheat. You know, at that moment, I just had to keep on scrolling. I just had to keep on scrolling. There's no understanding of that kind of psychology because there's so many things wrong right there. I can bet you that she came from a family where that kind of nonsense was going on. So she was used to it. She herself might even be a victim of it in her own original household before she married her husband. And there are some men who would marry women and give them conditions. If you want me to remain in this marriage, you must allow me to be intimate with our children. And the women will say, okay, because they don't want to be alone. They will always want to be addressed as Mrs. You know, the public approval is more important to them than the integrity and the safety of their children. They want to be known as Mrs. Whatever. So if the man says, look, for me to remain in this marriage, I will have to be intimate with the children, she will say yes. And if the child complains, She will say, just endure. You're doing it for the family. It's your father. What's the big deal? And it happens on the other side too. Okay. So that's suppression of trauma. Now, another cause is generations that maintain the same negative thought. We're always poor. You see them saying, we never have. We always struggle. In our family, we always struggle. We're known for struggling. And they're proud of this. And they use that to feed an egregore that is attached to their lineage. Because remember again, when somebody enters into a covenant, a bloodline agreement, oftentimes they could be doing this with a deity or a spirit guide, or they could be doing it with an egregore. As long as that deity or spirit guide or egregore is doing what they want and giving them what they want, they're like, yes, you can feed off my family, you can feed off my lineage, as long as I'm getting what I want. And so you see the people in the family agreeing with it. Oh, it's always been like this. No one in our family is ever rich. We always struggle. Or they will say, oh, we always die young in our family. Somebody was telling me the other day that in their family, the men exit no later than 60. Whenever they hit 60, they're on their way out. And she was saying that one of her sons, when he was in his 40, they were all having supper, and the son was like saying, hey, I don't want to live past 60. That's an egregore right there. That's an intergenerational curse right there. And the guy was like saying, no, I have no business living past 60. And lo and behold, this guy died a week before his 60th birthday. And his brothers, who admired him and looked up to him, also did the same thing. So when they get to their 50s, they start having deadly illnesses and diseases. And none of them hit 60. And in their families accepted, oh, the men in this family never hit 60. They never passed. Oh, our father never hit 60, never passed 60. Our grandfather, no, 60 is our limit in our family. That's an intergenerational curse. Okay. Then you also have epigenetics, like I mentioned before, where the trauma experienced by one person or some people in the family changes how the genes in the cell express themselves. And so, even though the DNA, the actual DNA in the nucleus of the body cell doesn't change, but how the DNA expresses in the physical changes. So you'll see people in that lineage becoming more predisposed to stress, to illness, to certain kinds of mindsets, mental health illnesses like depression, psychosis, things of that nature. There was an interview of an African American gentleman who was talking about the reason why a lot of African American people, especially the men, have high blood pressure. And what he was explaining, he said it was not just a lifestyle thing. So people think, oh yeah, you eat too much, you're eating too much fats and sugar and thing and whatnot. And he said it's more than that. Because when black babies are born, they're born stressed. Their mother is already stressed. Their living circumstances are stressed, and then they're born into stressful environments. They have to deal with colorism and racism and all kinds of isms right out the gate. So you're having somebody experiencing life differently from someone who doesn't have to deal with all of that. So you're having a person who's living with a stressed body and increased stress response compared to their peers who are non-black. Okay, you hear a police siren, your heart jumps, and that used to happen to me. I remember when I was younger in Canada, and I used to listen a lot to stories about police brutality and stuff like that. And my friends and everybody were telling those kinds of stories. Okay, excuse me. And I noticed that anytime I saw the flashing lights of a police car or heard the siren, I would actually start feeling stressed out. My heart would start pumping. It would start beating. And I'm far away. I have nothing to do with what's going on, but I'm already feeling. And so I had to recognize it and say, stop, wait a minute. You've never been arrested. You've never been in trouble. That's not your thing. So why are you involved in this kind of thinking? So at that time, I decided I was going to stop being afraid of law enforcement. And I have people around me saying, oh, yeah, they carry pew pew machines. What if they pew pew you? If they pew pew me, they pew pew me. But I'm not going to go through life afraid because I have nothing in my personal experience that predisposes me to be afraid of law enforcement. Nothing. Upon everything I've experienced in my life, I have never broken the law. I've never been interested in breaking the law. I might have had some skirmishes, just like every other kid. Okay. And at that time, I went out of my way to start making friends with folks in law enforcement because I wanted to get over my fear of the people in law enforcement. And I did. I understood that when somebody's in law enforcement, they're a civil servant. They just happen to be a civil servant carrying a pew pew machine. But at the end of the day, they are civil servants, they're government employees. And so that helped me put that in perspective. They're employees. Okay. So, again, what are the symptoms of intergenerational curses? You have cycles of financial failure or financial loss despite all the best efforts. And as you're listening to this class, also write this down in your notebook. Cycles, patterns through the generations. So don't be writing there, oh my God, Papa Dr. Tochi said I'm experiencing intergenerational curse because I don't have a job, I don't have money, I owe money. That's not what I said. That is not what I said. I said, if it is going through the generations and if it is cyclical, if it's a pattern, you don't have money, your siblings don't have money, your children don't have money, your parents never had money, parents don't have money, your grandparents never had money, your great grandparents never had money, no one having money, or you find out that everybody in your family, they can't keep a job. And even when they make themselves small, even when they bow down, even when they brown nose, Brown nose. You know what brown nose means? Is there anybody who doesn't know what brown nosing means? Is there anybody who does not know what brown? Okay. And you end up with a brown nose. Okay. You find out that they are having an intergenerational curse in progress. Mama can't keep a job, Papa can't keep a job, son can't keep a job, daughter can't keep a job. Or they try to go to school and they never make it. There's always one thing or the other that's preventing them from making money, or preventing them from going to school, preventing them from upgrading themselves. Or, um, everybody's getting pregnant at the age of 12. Not just one person or two. Okay. Now, another symptom is generational illnesses or psychosomatic disorders. You'll find out that certain illnesses run through the family. You know, people in the community say, oh, that family's touched. Everybody in that family's touched. Okay. Um, when you have repeating patterns in relationships, okay, when you have things going on, I just want to see here. There's something I jumped, but I'm going to come back to it. So we talked about financial failures despite best efforts. We talked about generational illnesses, so medical illnesses, mental illness, and psychosomatic disorders. Psychosomatic is like it's going on inside the person's head. Oh, I'm sick. Something's wrong with me. And they're always finding something wrong with themselves. Um, Repeating negative patterns in relationships. Person's always getting divorced, or and other family members are getting divorced. Or you find people that they can't endure their marriage. They can't tolerate their marriage, even though they're the ones who selected their life partners. Okay. Or they're always choosing people who are betraying them in their relationships or their families. And it's happening to everybody, not just one person. Okay. That's a symptom. Then sudden unexplained blockages. Example, opportunities collapsing at the last minute, or opportunities crashing mysteriously. And it's not just happening to one person, it's happening to everybody in that family. And it's happening across generations. Because again, when we talk about intergenerational means across generations. We need to understand what intergenerational means. It means across. If it's only happening within one generation, it's intra-generational. But we're talking about intergenerational. So it's happening across generations. So if, for instance, you might have a father, he's trying his best, and just as he's about to hit it, he loses everything. And then his daughter She grows up, starts, gets into business or starts working. Same thing. Just as she's about to hit that promotion, it's snatched from her and given away to somebody else. One thing is always coming at the last minute and producing failure, humiliation, drama, obstacles. So it's happening to daddy, it's happening to daughter, it's happening to grandchild, it's happening to great grandchild, across generations. I repeat, across generations. Okay. If people are across generations having nightmares, especially if those nightmares are similar to each other, that's it's very likely it's an intergenerational curse going on. So grandma is having a nightmare, daughter is having a nightmare, granddaughter is having a nightmare, great granddaughter having a nightmare, grandson having a nightmare, everybody, cousin having a nightmare, auntie having a nightmare, or they have ancestral visitations. And in those nightmares and visitations, they're being warned, or they're having very, very bad nightmares, dire things happening to them in the dream state. That's an intergenerational curse. Okay. Feelings of heaviness, feelings of doom, feelings of it doesn't matter what I do, I can't move forward. Grandpa feels that way. It doesn't matter what I do. The son, I'm depressed. I don't know what to do. I'm confused. Okay. I'm confused. I don't know what to do. Then the grandson grows up and they're like, okay, go to college now. And he's like, I don't know what to do. I think I want to do music. I want to do rap. No, I want to do hip hop. No, I want to do R&B. No, I want to do trap. No, I want to slang. The family's like, no, you can't be out there slanging. Okay, I want to be a pastor. There are a lot of people who are pastors today because of this. They think that being a pastor or being a leader in a church is the solution to failure, especially financial failure. If I can be a pastor, if I can be an evangelist, if I can be a mufti, if I can be a cleric, if I could be an imam, then I will make money, I will make it big. People will be giving me contributions. People will be giving me money. There are many people in leadership positions in churches who are there because of intergenerational curses of poverty and not knowing what to do with their lives and stagnation. If you're on YouTube, I would appreciate a thumbs up for the live stream and will let other folks know that class is in session. So if you don't mind, thank you very kindly. If you're on YouTube, give me a thumbs up. I want to see this thing. Do you see that? I kind of, which way? Okay, it's doing it over here. It does that thing. You do the thing and it gives a thumbs up. I kind of like that. That's a cute thing this device does. Okay. Sometimes some people actually feel the curse. They feel like some kind of heavy presence or entity with them, and they just feel cursed. They wake up in the morning and they feel cursed. They go to bed at night feeling cursed. That like, things are happening to them and they're like, oh, I'm cursed. Okay. So those are things that happen. Now, when people have egregores feeding off the family and they keep on saying negative words to themselves and their children and their family members, thank you to all of you who gave me a thumbs up. I appreciate you. They feed the egregore because remember, the egregore depends on attention and emotion. Okay. Um, I was also going to mention there are generational curses that come from authority figures. Authority figures like parents, elders, religious leaders, spiritual leaders. There are some parents that will start intergenerational curses in their lineage. You know, they may curse the daughter and say, your daughter will do to you what you have done to me. Especially if the parent is justified. And I do have videos on my YouTube channel addressing this. What happens when children curse their parents? What happens when parents curse their children? And, you know, if you haven't watched those videos, I encourage you to find them on my YouTube channel and watch them. If the parent is justified and they curse the child, some of them, their curses will keep on going down the line. It will say, all these things you have done to me, your children and grandchildren will do it to you. That's a curse. And that's an intergenerational curse. Or you know, when the father or mother says, the same way you deprived me of peace of mind, the same way you deprived me of, you know, whatever it is that the parent feels that they were deprived of, you too and your children will be deprived of it. But understand something about curses from parents and elders. There's a caveat. There's a caveat. If that parent or elder or grandparent or whoever is at fault, they're the ones at fault and they're laying this curse, it will not come to pass. Because they have no spiritual basis and no spiritual authority to do so. Their curse comes to the door of the child, and the spiritual crew of the child will say, wait a minute, what did this child do to earn this curse? And the parent's spiritual crew is like, well, the parent doesn't like this child, and the child, blah, 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 blah. And the child's spiritual crew says, I don't think so. There is no spiritual justification for this. And so that's why you will see some parents, when they keep on cursing their children and cursing their children, and they don't see anything happening, they will resort to emotional blackmail and psychological manipulation. You're stupid, you're stupid, you're foolish, you will fail, you will never make it. And they'll keep on saying these negative things until the child internalizes it. And when that child internalizes those negative words, the child becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. And then the child will say, oh my God, my mother's curses have come to pass, or my father's curses have come to pass. And they don't realize that they are the ones who are manifesting these things because they believed the words that their parents told them. You're stupid, you're foolish, you will never do well, you will never succeed, and blah, and blah, and blah. Some of you might remember when I was talking about the shadow mother egregore and my personal experience with that. It was a 2-hour video. I think, when did we do that? I think it was on Wednesday. So if you haven't seen that video, I posted it on my YouTube. I got a lot of curses from my mother. One of her curses was that I was going to die before her. And here we are. Here we are 40 something years later. 40 something? 50 years later? 50 something years later? And she used to tell me that a lot. You will die before me. God is going to take you out before me. You will never see me die. You will never see my dead body. You will go down into the grave before me. And here we are 50 something years later, after her demise. And the reason why that didn't work, because she didn't have the spiritual authority to issue those kind of curses against me. There was no spiritual locus standi for that. None. Zero. Zilch. So if you are running in fear of that kind of thing, and you know that you are innocent and you have not gone out of your way to commit an abomination against your parent. Okay, now, if you stab your mom in the eye, you are not innocent. Okay, because I'm sure there are people saying, okay, Dr. Tochi said I'm innocent. There's nothing they say against me that's going to prosper. Are you innocent? Are you deliberately making their lives difficult? There's a difference between a child making an honest mistake and a child just being evil. There's a big difference. Because there's some children that are out there. But if a child is being a child and makes a childish mistake due to the fact that they're a child, and a parent is out there cursing them and trying to curse them and their generations down the road, it will not take hold. It will not take hold. Rest assured that it will not come to pass. There are some religious leaders that will place curses on people if the people do not obey them. Remember, I told the story of the young man that was placed on 30 days of fasting and prayer and whatnot because he didn't show up for Wednesday evening service. That's nonsense. And that kind of thing can only come to pass if you accept it. There are some people who believe their religious leaders more than God. There are people who believe their religious leaders more than their own creator. And that is sad. Okay, that is sad. I don't know why this thing looks like it's trying to give me a headache. I think I'm going to cut this thing on the back. It's like giving me a headache. I'm trying to be fashionable here. Okay. I think I'm going to cut it. It hurts. My head hurts. Okay. Oh, hold on. I'm going to cut it. This is too much. It's too painful. I just like getting a headache. I know this thing is put here to secure the... Oh my God. Did you feel that relief I felt when I just cut the band? I just felt like somebody in an MMA championship or UFC championship. You know, when somebody has you in somebody has you in a headlock. I feel so much better now. Cut the damn thing off. See, I'm trying to do my rich auntie thing, but It looks like there's a prize for being a rich auntie. Man, I feel so much better now. Oh my God, I can feel my brain. Miss Ellen is like, take it off, Dr. T. If it's hurting you, let your pineal gland breathe. For real. For reals, Miss Ellen. I need to let my pineal gland breathe. I feel so much better now. I cut it off. I feel so much better. Oof. I just felt like, yeah. Okay. All right. So remember we talked about epigenetics. Okay. Modern science has shown that trauma leaves biological scars passed to children and grandchildren. And an example is children of famine survivors. You find out that they tend to inherit metabolic syndrome disease at a higher level than those parents, the children of parents who did not go through famine and disease. Okay. So, we have some examples. Okay. An example of a poverty curse that goes through generations. Let's say you have somebody, let's say you had a grandmother who got cheated out of her land or cheated out of her bank account, and she tried to do everything to get justice and she couldn't. And she started telling her children, this world is wicked. People are going to take everything from you and they don't care. You can never get justice. As long as you're poor, you can never get justice. We're poor, so we will never get justice. You find out that the descendants will struggle financially. And they can have all kinds of education, they can have all kinds of things. But because their ancestor went through that and internalized it and passed it along as a message, we will always be oppressed. We're the poor of the earth. We're the dust of the earth. And the children internalize it and pass it along to their children. It becomes an intergenerational curse because everybody in that family is like, we will always be oppressed. Oh, yes, we have a history of being oppressed. There are some families who are proud to tell the stories of their oppression and how their great grandfather was oppressed and how their grandmother was oppressed and how their mother was oppressed and how they are being oppressed. And they're proud to tell you and to illustrate the strings of oppression in their family. That's an intergenerational curse. I don't know if some of you might remember Sandra Bland. This is an African American woman who was exited. She had a job, a new job at a university in Texas, and a police officer stopped her on the freeway because she didn't use her turn signal to indicate she was switching lanes. You know how like you're just driving along and you just change lanes. So this officer stopped her that she didn't use her turn signals to change lanes. From there, arrested her. And the reason for arresting her was that she wasn't using her traffic signals to change lanes. Not that her insurance was okay, her driver's license was okay. She wasn't a criminal, no prior criminal history. And took her to the county jail or city jail. And I think within 24 to 48 hours, she was gone. And they said, oh, she took herself. Then remember the lady, um, the one that was hearing a noise outside her home and called the popo, and already the popo were already hanging around her house anyway, and they came in and they asked her for her ID, and she was just telling them, "I don't know what this noise is I'm hearing around the house." Before you know it, I think one of the officers said, "Hey, you have a pot of boiling water on the stove. Do you need to put it out?" And she gets there, and before you know it, I'm not exactly clear what happened. And she starts saying, "I rebuke you. I rebuke you in the name of Jesus." And then she got pewed out. She went from calling from help to being exited. And when you look at these two women, people started tracing their ancestry. And they started, and now these are people online. I didn't do the research, so I'm just saying this as an example. Okay. So you have to go do your own due diligence. They were saying that these women were descended from ancestors that got taken out. They were descended from ancestors that got taken out. You're welcome, fire. Okay. Sometimes people will have relationship or marriage curses in their life when an ancestor maybe abandoned their spouse, and that spouse, that betrayed spouse, lays a curse on that person and says, "Your children will never stay in marriage. They will never have a relationship. They will never get married. And even if they get married, their marriages won't last. They will not have happy marriages." And you find out that the person, you look through that lineage, people are not getting married or finding it hard to get married, or if they get married, they can't stay in the marriage. They're being betrayed in their marriages. Same thing with children. There are sometimes somebody does something to someone with children, either takes away their children or pews their children or denies them access to their children. And the person says, "You know what? In your lineage, I'm cursing you today, in your lineage, your women or your men will be childless." And you'll find out that having children in that family or in that clan or that community becomes very difficult. Okay. Um, there are a lot of families that abandon their indigenous rituals and abandon their ancestors and abandon their deities because of Christianization or Islamicization. And so, what happens when they abandon their ancestors and their lineage spirit guides, their animal totems, you find the descendants being spiritually lost, okay, being ungrounded. People are out there doing whatever, having no sense of direction, having a lack of clarity. They're enraged. Get a lot of angry descendants. They don't know why they're angry. Some have mental illnesses. Some are depressed. Some are depraved. They just are involved in all kinds of abominations and terrible things because there's no spiritual grounding, no spirit. They abandoned the spiritual foundations that anchored their family. And so the descendants are growing up. Imagine a tree trying to grow without its roots. Okay. There sometimes you might have a curse of violence in the family. If you had an ancestor that pewed someone, took someone out, then in their family, you might find out the descendants of this person always meet with a strange end. Their children meet with unpleasant ends. And this is very common. You might come to a family and you're like, this child got taken out like this, and the father got taken out like this, and this person about to be took out like this. Sometimes they be taking themselves out, and it's rampant through that family. And there's yeah, this uncle took himself out, and the other uncle got took out, and the other, and you're looking through that family. That is happening. Okay. Addictions is another one. We already see from scientific research that alcoholism and chemical dependency, those who depend on the street pharmacist, it runs in families. If someone is an alcoholic, there's a high chance their children and grandchildren, great grandchildren are going to be alcoholics too. Okay. So before I start rounding up today's class with possible solutions to these things, um, are you still with me here? If you are learning anything from today's class, let's have your oh yeah in the comment section. Are you learning anything? Let's have your oh yay. I want you to understand what a generational curse is. If something happens to you, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a generational curse. It has to happen across generations, and it has to be the same thing happening across generations. So let's say your grandmother was an alcoholic, and your mother, uh, she's not an alcoholic, but her marriage not working out, and then you can't keep a job. That's not a generational curse, because you see there are different things happening to different generations in your family. Okay. Thank you, Miss Mary. Thank you, Patricia Mako. Thank you, Samson Mutonga. Okay. Is there anybody on TikTok who's picking up what we're dropping here? If you're understanding and picking up what we're dropping here, can we have your oh yay in the comment section before we round up? Okay. Thank you, Children African Bedtime Stories. I want to make sure you understand this material so that when you repeat it to someone else, you are speaking from a place of knowledge. And then if you want to go and start doing your own research, you have enough foundation to start asking questions and doing your own research. Thank you, D. Elizabeth Marshall. Is there anyone else? Do I have any more oh yays? Okay, thank you, Miss Rosemary Allen. I want you to be able to say, you know what, I want to look a little bit more into this topic by myself and learn what I can about this. Thank you, Love 3. Thank you, Fire. Are the other people sleeping? Okay. Is there anyone else who is understanding what we're talking about? Let's have your oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If you get it, say oh yeah. Wasn't there something back in the day? If you're having fun, put your hands in the air. Wave it like you just don't care. Take your hair off your head and wave it like you just don't care. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Say oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, back in the dance clubs back in the day. I'm hearing from the young people now, they don't have nightclubs and dance clubs the way that we used to. Nowadays, it's lounges with VIP sections, And if you don't pay for the VIP section, you don't have anywhere to sit down. You can't sit down anywhere all night long. I said, what a shame. And most people are going to the lounges and they're not even dancing, they're just standing around. That's not fun. You know, back in the day when we used to go to the club, it's like everybody's on the floor, like, wave your wig in the air. If you're something about if you're wearing a fake hair, take it off and wave it in the air, and everybody will laugh. We'll have fun. Thank you, Auntie Mazuba. Okay. So we have a handful of people saying, oh, yeah, that they understand what's going on. That's okay. So there are a number of rituals that we can do to start working with removing intergenerational curses. Thank you, Abella. Now, understand this. If you try to remove or dismantle an intergenerational curse and it doesn't work, get the help of an authentic, experienced spiritual practitioner. That will be the easiest thing for you to do. Trust me, it will be the easiest thing for you to do. But you could try your hand to see if you can remove this yourself, assuming that you correctly identify the problem as an intergenerational curse. Okay? Because there are people who, oh, I'm experiencing stagnation. It must be an intergenerational curse. And you're trying to tell the person it's not an intergenerational curse. And they're arguing with you because they've already set their mind to it that, oh, yeah, if something is happening to me, it must be an intergenerational curse. So that's why we laid the groundwork so that you understand exactly what it is. Now, one of the things you can do to remove an intergenerational curse is to go through an acknowledgement ritual. An acknowledgement ritual, you will need witnesses. It's not something you're going to do by yourself. You're going to have witnesses. Think about the South African Truth and Reconciliation um, uh, Committee or process. Those were acknowledgement rituals. When the people who were offended, the people who were targeted, the people who were oppressed, were able to speak their truth and have people in authority listen to them and acknowledge what they were saying. That's an acknowledgement ritual. So you speak the truth about what's going on in your family aloud and you break the silence. And people are hearing you and they're acknowledging you. And they too are saying, we too have seen this. We too have experienced this. And what you're saying is true. Now, somebody might ask me, what if your family members don't want to participate? Then you can't do it with them. You might have to go and find somebody else to do it with. You might do it with a spiritual practitioner. You might do it with your religious members. You might do it, But one of the simplest things you can do is just to call it for what it is. For instance, we're having an incest problem in this family. Everybody in this family being intimate with everybody else. Grandparents being intimate with family members, and parents being intimate, children being intimate. And the mere fact that you call it out and say what it is makes a huge difference. And it starts ending that curse. Another one you can do is an ancestor reconciliation and healing ritual. You set up an altar. You make offerings of food, light, incense, water, libations, and you ask for forgiveness and release. And you forgive the ancestors, ask the ancestors to forgive you. You start venerating your ancestors. You start communicating with your ancestors. You stop ignoring your ancestors. You start sending healing energy to your ancestors for their own trauma that you have inherited in your spiritual DNA. Another thing you can do is a cord cutting ceremony. I have on my YouTube channel a cord cutting ritual. Get you some selenite, and I demonstrate everything in that video, I think. And cut the cords that connect you to that curse. This is no longer part of me. I don't want any part of it. I'm not going to entertain it anymore. Okay. You can do blessing replacement rituals after you have done a cord cutting or breaking. Seal your bloodline with blessings and affirmations and protective prayers. Sometimes people will do a cord cutting and they will say, "The curse ends with me. My children, my grandchildren are not going to inherit this thing." And then they'll proceed to do a protection ritual over their children and grandchildren and themselves. And they say, "It ends here. This is not going to continue." Okay. Another one that's very powerful is a group cleansing. And this group can be a family group, a clan group, a kindred group, a community group that cleanse together. And this is popular in some cultures. Okay. Usually, group cleansing is facilitated by a spiritual practitioner. They might do an egg cleanse. They might do an earth cleanse. They might go to the river and cleanse themselves. They might have a spiritual bath. And the spiritual practitioner tells them what to say while they're having this bath or while they're cleansing themselves. They pray together. The spiritual practitioner makes some offerings. And some of those offerings involve animals. Okay. And everybody's cleansed at once. Some cleansing rituals, they will go get certain leaves from the bush, certain leaves and branches that are used for cleansing, and they will use that and wipe every member of that group down. And as they're being wiped down, the thing they're being cleansed from is being mentioned. Okay. Now, you can also do what I call somatic rituals. So you can do your herbs, you can do fasting, you can do cleansing on your own. On my YouTube channel, I have so many cleansing videos. Okay. And you're doing this to release the trauma in your body. I like to suggest to people, if you're going to do a somatic ritual, pair that with some psychotherapy. Pair that with some professional psychotherapy, because you want to understand what is happening to you, and the psychotherapist helps you develop a strategy for leaving that behind, for getting out of it. Okay. So understand that intergenerational curses don't have to define your future. You can transmute these things into blessings if you choose to confront them and heal them. But you have to choose to confront them. You can't keep ignoring them or sweeping them under the rug or saying, "You know what? Oh, Jesus, help me. Help me." Okay. Again, if you try these things and you wait 2, 3, 4, 5 months and the problems are still persisting, you most likely will need to get the help of an authentic and experienced spiritual practitioner. Because if you get one like that, part of their knowledge base should include cleansing, breaking down intergenerational curses. All right, so before we go, today is a relatively shorter class, 1 hour, 30 minutes. Have you learned anything? What questions do you have about today's material? Oh, excuse me. Any questions about today's topic? Or is everybody fully trained? Intergenerational curses are not something to be afraid of. They can be handled, they can be resolved. I don't want you to feel that, oh, okay, we might have an intergenerational curse going on and I'm doomed for the rest of my life. No, you're not doomed for the rest of your life. There are solutions for these things. I think part of my tiredness is, we're going through this fast, and I think my brain is like saying, you know what, we're ready for food. But we're in the process of breaking the fast, so we'll be eating soon. Remember that, let me go back to the calendar. Remember that tomorrow is the ancestor healing ritual. Um, I'm just Sunday tired. Your time to rest. I swear, I feel the same way too. So remember, if you are a member, generally I would do the um, ancestor healing ritual with advanced members. But for tomorrow, I'm going to open it up to all members. So I'm going to post the Google link to the ancestor healing ritual. We're going to do it tomorrow at 7 a.m. CST. 7 a.m. CST. So I'm going to post the link on Patreon, and I'm also going to post the link on my community pages on YouTube. So if you're a member, you should be able to pull the Google Meet link there, and I'll pin it to the top. Okay. Kimberly Hayes Taylor, Dr. Tochi, how can you be sure about whether it's an intergenerational curse or not? I already gave and what kind of curse it is. That's what I've been teaching for the past 1 hour, 30 minutes. Did you join us late? I've been talking for the past 1 hour, 30 minutes. I defined what it is, how to identify it, different types of intergenerational curses. That's what I've been talking about for the past 30 minutes. Are you trying to get me to repeat the class again? I already addressed all of that. Did you show up late for class? I've been talking for the past hour, 30 minutes. Different kinds of intergenerational curses, how to determine if you're experiencing an intergenerational curse. And if you use the guidelines I provided in today's class and you're still unsure, go get a divination. Get a divination from a spiritual practitioner that you trust. Okay. So, Kimberly, I'm going to post the replay of this video class on YouTube. So you can, if you were late, you can watch it because I was comprehensive. Okay, I heard a lot of it, but you said you may not be sure. Yes, I said you may not be sure if you don't know what to look for. If you're not sure, here are the things to look out for, and here's the definition of intergenerational curse. I defined it. Is there anybody on YouTube who can define intergenerational curse? What is it? What qualifies? Just the general definition I gave. What qualifies as an intergenerational curse and what does not qualify as an intergenerational curse? Can you put that in the comment section? Patricia Mako, how long in advance do we need to wait to get a consult? Not sure how booked you are. My my availability calendar is on my website. If you go to tochi.us, click on consultations and pick the divination that you want. For generational curses, I would suggest a cowrie shell divination, not a card divination, because when you talk about intergenerational curses, that's a deep spiritual issue. It's a deep spiritual issue. So you want to do a cowrie shell divination. Some people are like, "Oh, I want to do a card divination because it's cheaper." Card divination is just for everyday issues, making choices. Okay, so Kimberly Hayes Taylor, read the comment section. You can see people are answering your question. So if you go there, I have my availability calendar. I think I have availability this week, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so Kimberly, read the comments in the comment section. People are answering your question. Um, Elizabeth Marshall says curses that cross generations. Samson Mutonga says pattern or cycle amongst relatives. Okay, and D. Elizabeth Marshall clarified from one generation to the next. Yeah, so I spoke on that at length. Okay, Patricia. Okay. Now, uh, can folks name some types of intergenerational curses? Let's see, folks, we're listening. What are types of intergenerational curses from what we discussed in today's class? Alcoholism, correct. Okay, Fire said alcoholism. Miss Allen said alcoholism. Both of you are correct. What are other types of generational curses? Spoken words. Is spoken words a curse or a cause? Is that a cause or okay? Children African bedtime. Intergenerational curses when it affects the grandparents, the parents, the children, and even the grandchildren all at the same time. It may not be at the same time. Children African bedtime stories. It may not be at the same time. Okay, so I didn't say it happens at the same time, but it happens across generations. So you see the same thing repeating itself across generations. Okay. Fire says poverty, correct. Patricia says addiction, correct. Fire says lack mentality. Is that a cause or symptom? Okay, Samsung says not being able to have children. Yeah. If you find out that uh, generations in the family are having it, are finding it very difficult to have children. Like there's let me see on TikTok, Love3 saying addictions, poverty, mental illness, broken relationships. That's correct. Now, there's a family that I know of. Okay. They live here in the US, and I'm not going to say what states they are. Do you know what the generational curse in their family is? Okay, untimely death. Patricia Mako, you're correct. Which one? Neat success syndrome. I think you meant to type something else. Spirit. Okay, Rosemary Allen says spiritual neglect. No, spiritual neglect is a cause. Is not a symptom. Is a cause. D. Elizabeth Marshall, abusing home. That's a cause. Abila Keisha Frank, certain illnesses in the family. Correct. That is a sign. That can be a sign. Relationship problems. Okay. Okay, I see. Patricia meant near success syndrome. Divorces. Not getting married. Correct. Divine Suki says not getting married. There was this family I used to know here in the US. Do you know their generational curse was very interesting. In their family, they could only have one child. One child. So the great grandfather had only one child, one surviving child. All the other ones died in infancy. The grandfather had only one child. I got to meet the father. That father was the only child and married here in America and had only one child. That's all they could have. They couldn't have more than one child. That's a generational curse. Okay, debt. Certain kinds of debt. Yeah. Patricia says family lineage with no daughters, only sons, or vice versa. Correct. There are some families you will go, they can't get females, or they can't get males, or they can't have children, or they have a limited number of children. They can only have one child. That was a really interesting case. And I remember this person many years ago. We were at a convention in I'm trying to remember what state it was, many years ago, and the person was telling me about their family, and he was like, I'm the only child and I have an only child. And I remember saying to him, are you ever worried that if something happens to your child, God forbid, knock on wood, that you're done for? And he said yes. But he said the interesting thing in their family is that if the person tried to have more children, those other children after that first child would not make it. You would have the wives or mothers having miscarriages, or they will actually have the baby and the baby won't make it. Only the first child would make it. And nothing would happen to that first child. That first child would never be sick, never be injured, never get in trouble. Nothing bad will happen to that first child. Even if they were involved in not so safe activities, nothing would happen to them. Okay. And so you have the great grandfather, one child, and all of these men in the generation, they were single children, single male, single children, single male, single children in their family. That's it. They couldn't have more than one child, and it had to be a male. I thought that was so fascinating. That's an example of a intergenerational curse. And it really interesting to dig into that kind of family to understand why is it that way? Why is it that they can only have one child per generation? And I remember the man saying to me that when he came to America, he was like, oh, I'm in America now, and the things that obtain in my country will not obtain here. And I'm out here in America now, and I'm free. I'm spiritually free. I go to a great church, and I'm going to break all demonic bondage, and I'm going to break all evil and satanic things, and blah, 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 blah. And he ended up having only one child. That's all he could have. One child. And it didn't matter whether the man married the mother of the child or not. So let's say he was playing an away match and had a child, that was all he was getting. If he married the woman and brought her into his home, it was only one child he was going to get. That's all he could get. One child. One child. Patricia Mickle, the lady having 9 kids, that 9 kids, all boys, that's not an intergenerational curse. So I thought that story was very, very interesting. That it was fascinating. And I got to meet his son. Handsome, young man. Handsome young man and bright and doing his own thing. And I think the son was signing up for football or something like that. And I was like, aren't you concerned? And he goes, in our family, we have the one child and nothing will ever happen. No broken bones, no injury, no sickness, no surgery, nothing. Elizabeth Marshall says, maybe there was a deity involved with the one child situation. I'm thinking probably it has something to do with the deity. What if he had multiple wives? All he could have is one child. One child. Thank you for making me the chosen one to heal or getting healing for my family. I have knowledge. You're welcome, Love 3. Do what you can. Doesn't matter. His grandfather had multiple wives. He could only have one child. The first wife who had the child, that was it. All the other women, they will have children. They had high infant mortality rates. None of the kids were surviving. There were multiple miscarriages, none. And then, in those kind of situations, they were accusing the first wife that had the surviving child. They were accusing her of juju and voodoo, that she was attacking them, witchcraft and everything, whatnot. They were accusing that one. But the man said that his father knew that it had nothing to do with witchcraft. It had nothing to do with voodoo or juju or hoodoo or any of the who's. It was something that happened in their lineage. And he had to call his wives together and say, this is what happens in the family, and show them examples. And his brothers, did he have brothers? No, he didn't have brothers. His cousins. Because at some point, I think there was these brothers and they had their sons. And then this particular lineage was only having sons. And then the other lineages from that ancestor, they were having multiple children. But just this particular son from this ancestor lineage was having only one son, one child and one son, one male child. But their distant relatives were having children. But when he traced his father's father, they were all one children, up to the common ancestor who had multiple wives and multiple children. So there was something going on. Maybe there was a vow that was made. I'm just guessing here. I don't know. I'm guessing. Maybe there was a vow made. Maybe the mother who had that one child, maybe she was experiencing multiple infant exits and high mortality rate. And maybe she made a promise. She's like, if remember Hannah in the Old Testament, in the Tanakh, saying, if you keep this one child for me, I will dedicate this child to you. Remember Hannah in the Old Testament? And so she had Samuel. And then when she had Samuel, she handed Samuel over to the church, and so Samuel was now covenanted to his temple. And if you read the story of Samuel, I don't think Samuel ever got married or had children. Yeah, he was handed over to Eli, you're correct. But I don't think Samuel ever got married or had children. But I think Hannah had other children after Samuel. I think she did. Okay. But remember, she was having a hard time having a child, and she came and she said, if you she was praying to the Israelite deity of the time and saying, if you give me a child, I promise to dedicate this child to you. And so she got pregnant and she dedicated the child. So there might be something similar happening in this situation. I'm just guessing. Maybe their ancestor mother was having a problem having a child and just saying, maybe said to the local deity, if you give me this one child, I will be grateful. I will never ask for any other child again. Because in those kind of societies, having a child ensures your longevity in your marriage. If you don't have a child, they treat you like smallpox. So she probably said, and again, I'm just guessing here. I don't know what happened, but she probably promised the deity and said, "Look, if you just give me this one child, I'll never ask you for anything again." Or because sometimes people will make extreme promises. Maybe she said something like, "If you all I need from you is one child. Don't give me more than one. Just give me one. That's only one. I only need one from you. Don't let me be ashamed in front of my co-wives. Don't let me be ashamed in front of my husband. Don't let me be ashamed in front of my community. Just give me one. I will never ask you for anything again. Just give me the one child. That's all I need from you. That's all I'm asking you to do. Just give me the one child." And so the deity gives her the one child. And maybe in raising that child, she told him the story. Before I had you, I had nobody. And I promised the deity for just one child, and you're my only child. And this deity, I don't go to the deity asking the deity for anything else, because that's my agreement with the deity. Just give me the one child. I'll venerate you for it. I don't need more than one child. Just give me one to make me a mother, to prove that I'm not barren. And maybe the child takes it to heart. So when he grows up and marries, and then he starts experiencing fertility issues, maybe he went back to the deity and said, just give me one. Don't let me be ashamed. Just give me one. And the deity gives him just one. So maybe, something like that could happen. And like I said, I'm just guessing here, because at that time, I didn't start asking the guy. I never said to him, "Oh, can you tell me a little bit more as to why you just have a lineage of one going on in your family?" You know, I just thought it was fascinating, because I remember asking him, "Hey, wait a minute. Suppose something happens to your child. What are you going to do?" You're going to be wiped out. Eli announced another blessings, and Hannah had 3 more children. Okay. But she did promise, her covenant was to have a womb opener. And so Samuel was her womb opener. All right, folks. So we are done with today's class. Remember, our ancestor healing ritual is tomorrow at 7 a.m. CST. I will post the link on Patreon and on the community page for members. It's open to members. If you're coming, you may come with your little tea lights and a fireproof dish. You may also choose to come with some incense if you want. If for some reason you're unable to do all that, maybe you're at work or you're on the road, you can just observe the ritual. But remember, when you're participating in the ritual, all cameras must be on. We don't do anonymous. Okay. If you need me for your divination, spiritual counseling, spiritual practice coaching, dream interpretation, and more, for products, services, courses, books, please go to my website at tochi.us or drtochi.com. It's been a pleasure having all of you in class with me today. I thought it was ending at 1 hour 30 minutes, and now we're almost here at 2 hours. Okay, it's all good. It's all good. Feel free to share the video. Feel free to hype the video. It's important that people have this information. You're welcome, Fire. I have more videos coming on the egregore series. I have more. There's a lot more coming on the egregore series. That's a huge topic. So I have more. Next weekend, I don't believe I have any live classes next weekend because we'll be doing some water initiations and water rituals and elder initiation next weekend. Okay. I did announce before if folks wanted to meet for a meet and greet. I didn't hear back, so I'm pulling that back. I'm just going to do the initiations and rest, try to rest. I'm just a little bit exhausted. Okay. All right. We're thankful to our Creator, our guardian spirits, our ancestors, and our spirit guides for today's forbidden fruit. We ask that it yield beautiful fruits in our lives, and that we continue to be protected, loved, supported, guided along the path to our destiny. Ashe, Ise, Kamaga, Bakoza, Lasedi, Makwande, Ayibabo, and Yenho. It is done, it is finished, it's complete. Amen. Ma'at. Thank you for coming to class. Let me go out and play with my wig. I'm gonna do sachet with my wig. Gonna be like Willow Smith. What's that song she sang about whipping it? Whip my hair, whip my hair, whip my hair. What was the song she put out some years ago about whipping her, whipping her hair in the wind, or whipping something. I love you all. What was to say? Whip? What did she used to say? Whip my hair, whipping my hair, whipping of my hair, whip something, whip it, whip it. Whip it, whip it, whip it, whip it, whip it. Okay. At least I'm not twerking. The last time I tried to twerk, we had to do some 3 tablets of extra strength Tylenol. Okay, so we're not trying to do that in a hurry right now. Okay, so I need to build up to the twerking. Okay, we need to work the lower portion a little bit more so that yeah, there you go. Whip my hair back and forth. Whip my hair back and forth. Yeah, it was something to do with whip my hair back and forth. At the rate I'm going, I'll be whipping my hair back and forth, and this whole wig will probably fly off my head. Yeah, I had that happen to me in a presentation in Michigan many years ago. I was talking so assertively, my wig flew off my head. But the funny thing was that people didn't know; they thought it was part of the presentation. It was only one person in the audience. He was a city accountant. He had a really high position back then. Gentle guy. He was sitting in the back. He was the only person who understood that my wig uh, flying off my head wasn't part of the presentation. And so what he did was and the wig flew off and flew all the way to the back of the room. And so what he did was he picked it up and held it for me. And after the presentation, he gave it to me. And all the non-black people in the room, they were clapping furiously because they thought it was part of the presentation. And he and I were the only we were the only two black people in the room, and both of us understood what happened, that was not part of the presentation. We had a good laugh about that. Okay. The non-black people in the room were like, bravo, bravo, Tochi, bravo. Oh my god. Sometimes, you just gotta go with the flow. Just go with the flow. So talk to y'all later. Oh my god. You gotta